where Prime Minister Keir Starmer has strongly condemned an attack on a hotel housing asylum seekers that saw at least 10 police officers injured, one seriously, describing it as far-right thuggery. In a statement from 10 Downing Street on Sunday afternoon, the British Prime Minister vowed that the authorities will do whatever it takes to bring these thugs to justice and that justice will be swift. But terrifying footage from Rotherham showed masked far-right protesters kicking out windows to storm the Holiday Inn Express, as you can see on your screens at the moment. These are visuals that we have accessed from Rotherham. The Holiday Inn Express that is being attacked housed migrants. Now, elsewhere in the United Kingdom, the atmosphere was also tense. In the northeast town of Middlesbrough, protesters broke free of a police cordon, and as protests began in Bolton near Manchester, police said that a dispersal notice had been authorized to give officers extra powers to tackle antisocial behavior. But police officials in the UK have said many of the actions are being organized online by shadowy far-right groups who are mobilizing support with phrases like "enough is enough," "save our kids" and "stop the boats." They are actually tapping into a narrative amplified by right-wing media outlets and commentators about the scale of immigration in the UK, in particular migrants and refugees arriving in small boats from France across the English Channel. But Mr. Starmer's statement came as more violence broke out across the UK in the wake of a stabbing rampage at a dance class that left 3 girls dead and many more wounded. Well, for further clarity on what's happening in the UK, we have with us Nicholas Nugent at the moment. Thanks so much, Nick, for making time for us as always. Reports indicate that the recent riots in the UK were actually fueled by misinformation about the identity of a murder suspect, with some actually claiming that he was a Muslim immigrant. Critics, meanwhile, have repeatedly pointed out that the spread of misinformation and the amplification of xenophobic rhetoric about immigrants, as well as minority communities in the UK, has led to the current outbreak of violence. But Nick, are anti-immigrant sentiments now making a comeback in the UK?
You're right that the spreading of the suggestion that the killer of these children was a Muslim first triggered the riots, and the first targets were mosques in the first day or two. But it's subsequently transmogrified into a wider protest against foreigners, against immigrants in general. Even the burning down of some shops owned or managed by immigrants. So it's, by people who are not born in this country, let me put it like that. So it's quite complex. I think the Islamic element's gone now, and I think it's a wider issue. It's a race issue, to be blunt. It's people who don't look like us. Why should they be here? And the easiest targets are the hotels where asylum seekers are accommodated. But it's not just there. So we pride ourselves in Britain on good race relations. And what the cities that are targeted so far, I've counted 16 cities where there seem to be problems. It's not nationwide, but it is in a lot of places. The 16 cities that I've noticed where the mobs are on the streets, let's put it like that, all have a complicated ethnic mix of people. So, and also many of them seem to have hotels accommodating illegal immigrants. So it's become an issue of ethnicity, race, and indeed immigration in general.
We're seeing far-right protests just following an end to 14 Conservative years' rule. Anti-far-right groups argue that these are outpourings of legitimate anger. But Nick, can a Labour Party that has only been in the government the past 4 weeks be blamed for this? How do you foresee this playing out for Starmer and his party?
Well, it's certainly a big challenge for the new Prime Minister, who is just marking his first month in office. And I think he, like the rest of us, didn't see this one coming. But then, as you know, this was triggered by a criminal event, the killing of 3 children in a northern city, Southport. Quite why it's become this massive protest movement is a little hard to gauge. And it's certainly a very big challenge for the Prime Minister, particularly since the Prime Minister has already junked the policy of the previous government with regard to illegal immigration. And this protest seems largely to take the form of an attack on illegal immigrants. The mob, as I shall call them, because it's not at all clear whether they belong to one organization or whether they're a collection of disenchanted people. But their major target seems to be the hotels where asylum seekers are have been placed. So they've jumped, you could say, from the protest at the killing of 3 young children and made this a sort of anti-immigration protest, and especially anti-illegal immigration, the people who arrive by boats. And that's something that the government have not yet told us in detail what their policy will be. As you may recall, they junked the policy of the previous government to send what are known as failed asylum seekers to Rwanda. So they've junked the previous policy, but we're not at all clear how this government are going to progress the situation of the large number of especially illegal arrivals in Britain.
Meanwhile, Nigel Farage has criticised the government for blaming it on a few far-right thugs. But Nick, tell us, how are the recent UK riots impacting the political landscape, particularly in terms of shifting public opinion and also influencing party dynamics?
I think there's relatively little support for people who go on the streets, attack vehicles, attack shops, loot from shops, set fire to premises, including a library and a police station. I don't think that's going to win public support. It's not the way to win public support. So I don't think this will gather widespread support. But of course, it's worrying that some people are prepared to do these things just to make their points. I think what we're likely to hear over the next few days is a clearer indication of whether it's one particular organization that is organizing these things,
right,
like the English Defence League, that's been named as a suspect in this. But I don't think it's going to change public opinion. And I don't think, I mean, the government's not going to fall. We have a new government and they have a lot of good ideas that seem to have won them the support that was demonstrated in the election. So I think we are all looking to the government to see what steps they can take to bring things under control, whilst supporting the police in their efforts to bring things under control locally. Right. I think my own suspicion is this will peter out after a few days, but we will have learned quite a lot of lessons from it.
Right, Nicholas Nugent, as always, thank you so much for making time for us. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates.